mentioned about the overseas connection in the early historic period. There is a site called Usaid on the Red Sea coast of Egypt where they have found two potsherds with Brahmi inscription. The name is typically Canaan. One reads Canaan and the other Chatan. Especially this, the last in is very typical of, identified as very typical of Tamil Brahmi. This na in Canaan and this Chatan. So see, while writing, they were writing as Canaan, and it is said it should be read as Canaan. Sometimes they didn't do those doubling, because that they were initially experimenting with the Brahmi, and the much more developed system did not emerge there. So this is another important evidence for the movement of people outside Indian subcontinent. Probably these people might have come from the region of Kerala, and right, you have the same name appearing in the Tamil literature. This is another inscription found on an amphora at Kor-Ori. It reads Nandai Kiran. Again, the last letter in is very typical of Tamil Brahmi, Nandai Kiran. The term actually Kannan, it could be Kannandai, it is broken. One of the problems with this pottery Brahmi inscription is that they are fragmentary. So you are not able to find the complete names in many cases. And this was found at the site called Sumuram or Kor-Ori in Oman. It was found on an amphora. This is again a typical name, very similar to what is found in Tamil literature. This Nandai, if we take it, already I mentioned about Andai, if it is Kannandai, we could argue that this person might have come from Coimbatore region where a large concentration of Roman coins are found, because this Kannandai is a clan name of a group of people living in this particular region of Coimbatore. So we can pinpoint with this, the same name occurs in literature also. Literature, oral living tradition, and the inscription. Kiran is also another important name commonly occurring, and the settlements were named after Kiran, Kiranur. Same way, you find all these evidence. And coming to the point of local dialects, and sometimes I find the terms mentioned in the inscriptions are prevalent among certain people. For example, Siragu is a Tamil term which refers to wing of a bird. Interestingly, this term is referred to in the Tanjavur Bragadishwara temple inscription to refer to the quarters on each sides of the temples. The Devar Adiyar or the Talicheri Pindigal temple workers were living in these quarters. The term Siragu is used. The main point here is Siragu is not used in Tamil. We all use Pakkam. This Pakkam, which has derived from Sanskrit Paksha. Siragu. Siragu means a wing of a bird. Iragu actually refers to the single. Yeah, also in Malayalam and Dravidian. See, though I use the term Tamil, some of these terms are there in all the Dravidian languages. I have not taken note because it's a much more detailed work to look into the other languages. We can take as an indicative. But we, in some regions, we never use the term Siragu, but in the local dialects. The dialects has so changed in the region of Tanjavur or Chola region, we use only Pakkam. But in Pudukkottai region, the term Siragu still survives in the dialects as Rakku or Lakku. Probably we can correlate these two terms. There is another term called Asu, means which is also found in the literature in terms of measurement of land. Asu is something of checking the straight line or orientation, which is the term is used by the masons while constructing or checking the straightness of the wall. So this term is there in the inscription. Again, it is used by the craftsmen. This is where I think we need to understand the terms and technical terms used by various craft groups in order to interpret the terms found in the inscription. That's what highlighted here through this slide. So I'll try to finish. At this point I already mentioned the terms for vessels found in the inscriptions, and also bulleted that this is from Tisa Maharama, and Mahadevan reads it at Tirulamuri. It could be Sri Lankan practice also. So again, with regard to the Chittanavasal inscription, again there is change in the reading. Earlier there was a place name was read as Siruvayil, and Kamuti Ithenku, that is how they read the name. Later on, they found that in the medieval inscription, there is a place name called Ten Siruvayil. Vayil means gate or entrance, Siru means small, Ten means south. So how will you split the reading of Brahmi, inscriptions? So in the later on, in the medieval inscription, a place name called Ten Siruvayil is mentioned. So then they corrected the Brahmi reading of this Chittanavasal inscription. So that is how the later inscription also help us to correct our reading, because most of the inscription, Brahmi inscription that we read, they are just one version. Even if you look at the Mahadevan's publication and other, there are a lot of variation in the reading. So even Nagasami reads some of these inscriptions as different, in a different version. So whatever has been read is not final. There are variations because we are not able to split the terms, to make meaning of these early inscriptions, because they never left space. As I said, even they were trying to experiment with writing, and also you find a lot of non-Tamil words of Prakrit or Sanskrit origin like Dhamma, Adhitanam, Nisidigai, Asirigal or teacher. So they are also found in the early Brahmi inscription, clearly indicating the contacts with the other parts of India. Just finishing this, already I mentioned that Y. Subbaraya has done some gist mapping based on the names found in the inscription. I think we need to take forward such studies and integrated approach to epigraphy. I think with this I finish my presentation. So if you have any questions, I can answer.
Please feel free to ask questions.
Will come from the characters. More one simple logic is the early Brahmi inscriptions are generally angular, like you find cross. They were, as I said, they were experimenting. Even if you look at Ashokan Brahmi, they are all angular. Later on, as they were practicing, started writing fast. The cursive character, when you want to write, you want to, we ourselves do that. When you want to write a name in your application, we print. They ask you, kindly print your name, so that you write each character slowly. But when a person writes, it depends upon the mood. That is why there is one standard form and the way a person writes. So each inscription is something, like there is a person who is writing, and there is a person who is marking on the stone, there is a person who is carving. How? We don't know whether the person writing was giving instruction to the person who was carving at the time of inscription. If the person who carves, if he doesn't understand, in the case of, there can be deviation. That is why you find a lot of variation in the Brahmi inscription. So it is more angular. Till about 2nd, 3rd century, 4th century, you find angular, and then later on, there's more cursive nature in the script. Yeah.
So you were talking about references to poetry and literature. I just wanted to know that, do we find any references of women poetess being, engraved, and if at all they are there, like the only person I know is Andal, and if at all her references come, or in which temples do they come, or that woman with that long hair. her name. Virupaksh, the one who worships Virupaksh. Akka Mahadevi, for instance. Like, do these references come, like, are female poets also addressed in the same manner as the male poets? Or in which area or which kind of temples or inscriptions do we see them more in number? Or, I don't know, just a question.
So I think, I don't think much detailed studies have not been undertaken in terms of statistics. I think Akka Mahadevi is not from Tamil region, so I don't know. Andal is of later. We do get women's name in the early Brahmin inscription, but we can't say that they were poets in the early period. We don't have any direct reference to suggest that they were poets from the inscription. But in literature, yes, we do have evidence. I mentioned about many poets, there were poets with name in the, as far as the early period is concerned. Of course, like in the later period, you do get these Nachiyar referring to the Andal and other appearing in the later period inscription. And this worship was widespread in Tamil Nadu, more in the southern part of Tamil Nadu, around Villiputtur. So in the early period inscription, we don't have any direct reference to women poet. Even for that matter, male poet is not there. Only from the medieval context we get that. Yeah, that.
One clarification. Sir, you said during your lecture, Pandya king made expedition towards Gangakonda Cholapuram and destroyed some of the portion, and which is correlated with Sangam literature. What is this happening? I don't understand what you are saying.
Sundar Pandya in the medieval period. In the medieval period, they defeated them.
And connected with this incident to Sangam literature.
No, because this Tiruvallari inscription mentions that Tiruvallari inscription, Pandya destroyed all the pillars, but he left only the pillar related to Kannan, who composed the Pattinapadu. So it is mentioned as a poem in the Tiruvallari inscription, pointing out that the Pandya king gave so much importance to Tamil and Tamil poets.
Yes.
So in that context, it is mentioned.
But another one thing, Podigai you mentioned. Podigai is overhanging portion appeared on the top of the pillar, but you mentioned it is above the wall.
No, it is above the, below the Uttinam,
Below the
beam, above the pillar.
above the
Above the pillar. Above the pillar, below the pillar. It is there, the site is Kiramangalam, where there is an inscription, and it's mentioned. And it was read.
Sir, you showed a potsherd with ink inscription on it. Where is it from?
It is from Bernike, it is called Astrakhan. Astrakhan, and it is from a Roman site where they have a tradition of writing on pottery with ink.
And it was only in Rome, nowhere else.
No, as far as I know, it is not found in India.
And what was the composition of the ink?
Ink, I don't know. I don't know really. They have a, it is written with the ink, maybe indigo ink. I don't know. Maybe it have gone from India. Yeah. What? Color, it is slightly blackish. Yeah, I have not seen the shirts. I was there in Bernike in one season. When I went, this shirt was not found. It was found before. I have seen some photographies. Yeah, so there's one there and then next somebody else. Yeah.
Sir, you have mentioned that they sometimes change the village name. I'm asking that is there any reference or inscription, because village name is something which cannot be changed suddenly. So is there mention of anything inscription that officially the village name has been changed or something?
Yeah, there are several cases. New villages are created in the cases of donation to Brahmins. They are named after the king. That is mentioned in the inscription. Sometimes these kind of changes, nobody goes and officially mention that this name was changed. So we can deduce from the inscription that this name was changed. But whenever villages were donated to the Brahmins, they were named as Veeranarayan, Sadhuveli Mangalam after that king's title. So that means they also did not change. They also mentioned the old name, dash village alias this name. So while local people were also using this name, probably the title when the donations were made, people may not have been using that name, but they give a new name. But both the names are in use in some time. Sometimes the old names disappear, new name appears. But otherwise, there is no official record as such that, apart from this case, that this name becomes, sometimes it naturally goes, people, this colloquial way of speaking and literary, both are different. That's what I said, Madurai and Madurai. But now we write Madurai, we don't know how people were writing in the ancient time. So sometimes we tend to correct the names. We don't know what was the correct form. So when you look at this medieval literature, that helps us to understand how these names were spelled in literature. So it is an additional instance of the same name appearing in different contexts. When you map this chronologically, you will be able to mark how the name changed over a period.
Sir, one question.
Yeah.
That is the Akal vessel you have mentioned. Akal.
Akol.
Akal, yeah. And there is name of a person to whom it belongs.
No, Akol is actually, it is related to cattle lifting and protecting the cattle. So the name of the person was Thiyan. That is different.
I think she's talking
So
about
it
the
is-
White Mount vessel.
No, Akal. Okay, Akal. Oh, Akal. Yeah. The vessel. The name of the person. It is said Mudhukuran Akal, the vessel that belonged to this person. Like now we have the tradition of writing our name on our vessels. Similarly, people were writing this. I deduced that probably the concept of pollution. That means when you eat from a particular vessel, that you are supposed to eat, only you are supposed to eat from that, no one else should use that. Probably for that reason, they were writing their name on these vessels, and also in context where different kinds of people assemble, not in their household. These people have travelled away and they are in the different region, and then they are living for various commercial purpose together. In this context, there is a necessity for writing their name on their vessels. So that is the context where we get. So through this indirectly, we come to know the name of that particular type of vessel.
So you have told us that from Tamil Nadu we have got more than 1,000 Brahmi short label.
Short label in sense that around what else?
What about Kerala? We believe that once Kerala was part of Tamilagam, and we have a few of them have received. And what's the reason for that? At the same time, Malayali culture was very flourished in Kerala.
Yeah. So the Brahmi inscriptions appear at the end of the megalithic culture in the early history, and Brahmi inscription we don't get in Kerala because not much excavation has been done. Even at Pattanam they are found in limited number. Maybe they are all destroyed because you have evidence at Edakal for a Brahmi inscription. So definitely people were writing in Kerala also. Only thing is the evidence is not found. Maybe it is not preserved. Even the statistics I am giving is it's tentative. It keeps changing. Rajan himself has found at Kodumanal more than 500. So the number is just an indication. There are several other sites which are fragmentary names and all. You can't call them as a regular inscription. They are label inscription. So in this case the number doesn't count. But one thing is very sure that people were writing for some purpose, and they were widely practicing writing. As I said, for the pollution related, because the vessel that belongs to a person should, only that person should eat, and also they just wanted to experiment. So maybe I think it should be there also in the other regions also. maybe in the excavation we need to conduct and understand, and also the graffiti. Probably what Rajan has published is from Kodumanal. He has found both this graffiti and this occurring together. So there is definitely some linkage which we are not able to understand. Maybe these people were practicing and then they took over to this. Yeah, there's yeah.
Actually, I have two conceptual confusions in regard to archaeology. When you talked about the regional identity formation and from the inscriptions also, sir, in many cases what you see that the donor is also come from a different cases of the inscription. The donors comes from different places, or in many places the inscription mentions people coming from a different place, like the Kavitara inscription in Sri Lanka mentions from Kanchi, or Kutlai inscription which mentions people coming from Kanchipuram. So sir, to understand formation of a regional identity from epigraph, so my confusion is like where to assign that kind of identity, to the region where it is belonging, or to a group who are coming from a different period, because in both cases they form the part of the culture. And this is the first confusion. And the second confusion is like as a student, because I have always seen that we understand the development of a script as along with the political dynasty, like Satavahana period resources, or in the under the Pandya thing was like that, or during the Sangamaya. So my understanding is more of a gradual development. So like how to connect the development not as regard to that political dynasties or anything, but as a gradual development along with archaeology. How as a student we should look at it. I want your solution.
Yeah, actually, as you said, I think we need to look at the evidence in two contexts. One at local level, another at pan-Indian level, because some of the terms I said Dhamma, Adhishtanam, I also mentioned that you need to look at two levels. One at the micro level, like place names, another level for parallels in outside the region. See, actually, people were traveling quite a lot in the ancient time. So I think at one level you can consider them belonging to a broader Indian or this identity. At another level, probably some people were of very local in nature. That you get it from the Brahmi inscription and their distribution. You get local as you get at one point they are part of the local tradition, at another point they are part of Indian tradition, because the ideas were moving. People were moving, material culture. See, the word, actually inscription is not just isolated word. It is the movement of material culture, movement of concept, movement of religion, movement of ideas, like the land donation, Brahmins, all this Vyavasthai, the technical being, technical term, justice, and all that. So, Professor Michel also was telling me that I was focusing more on Tamil, maybe we have to correlate with more in Sanskrit. So my argument, I think it should be two-way process. In my inscription, it mainly confines to Tamil region because of my familiarity and also the way I designed this. Maybe it can be also done. I think there is another lecture. Somebody is going to present Chitra Madhavan on Sanskrit inscription in Tamil Nadu. So I think there are two things. One is the broader process of something called Sanskritization happening. People were communicating, people were traveling, ideas were freely moving. And when we want to view history nowadays, we view the certain parochial notion. We write history for a purpose. For some time, history is also written to justify the funding agencies and things like that. There are other issues. I think ideally there are two ways looking at. Sometimes you are understanding a regional case, regional script, regional parallel is also very important. In a way, I think we should view things as macro and micro cultural dimension. Local, any process that goes, any of these things that even if you look at culture development in India, there is so much of localization as well as broad ideas being incorporated into local element. What is the second question?
My confusion was like, as a student, how to look into the gradual development of.
Yeah, I think it should not be related to
not-
political, because we have been taught in the cultural period where generally divided into political, but the development of script is something part of the intellectual tradition. People were writing and developing, and the inscription, we call it as Pandyan inscription. Sometimes only the king's name is mentioned. The donations sometimes were made by people who were nothing to do with the king. So they were using this as a period marker, or a chronological marker. This many 13th year of this particular king. So it doesn't mean that it is a Pandyan inscription. In our language also we say Pandyan inscription. There are two different. So political process need not be always related to that. So that is what it is said. All of a sudden, when a new king comes, I don't think people change their way of life. It flows on.
Exactly. That's
So,
what we
yeah.
see in the applications.
And then, yeah, any one of you, please. Yeah. What is grammatical structure it is there? That is why we call it as each one. It is just a label, that's it. It doesn't matter whether you call it Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization. It is just an entity. And sometimes when we go into that discussion itself, again, that's why I said initially, I'm not going to talk about the origin. I'm not going to talk discuss about the chronology. And these things, I think, already people have endlessly discussed against the label. But one thing is sure, that people were using it to write Tamil, and the names are Tamilized. And then they have also adopted this and this Prakrit words, and some of the inscriptions were produced by people from other region. That is where this answers these questions. You should not see a site found in Tamil Nadu be an exclusively product of that particular culture. They were travelers. I said already. The person from this village, might have gone outside and produced a text outside. So therefore, the person has dual identity as a part of that culture as well as part of the agriculture, because people were taking their wealth, especially merchants. They do not have any place association. So the Brahmi, some of the Brahmi inscription found in Tamil Nadu should be seen as an evidence for the history of northern India or eastern India, wherever they are coming from. So we need not, just because the site is located, doesn't mean it is only their heritage. That is why I think we need to see this from a different perspective. Same with the Tamil. So though we call it Sangam Tamil literature, that time the meaning of Tamil is very different. There is one scholar who argued past is a foreign territory. So now, when you say Tamil literature, there is a group of people living, speaking Tamil, and you should not see it that their literature. It should be a literature of that language produced at that point of time. Even though it is written in Tamil, you get lot of evidence for lot of other Sanskrit terms and other which are not parallelly found in other region. That is why if you find any evidence for in Kannada, it doesn't mean it is Karnataka related information only. So therefore, viewing this as Karnataka history or Tamil Nadu history also has at one level problem. So it is a history beyond the boundaries. We can view it that way. So it should not be seen as entirely a source for that particular region. That is where I think even we looking at the sources found in other region is also important. Most of the students, when we look at, that's what I said, we'll look at only in that region. Like we have many students from Sri Lanka who are referring to those Sri Lankan Prakrit found in Kaveri Pumbatinam or this place, Adahankulam, and also Kanjipuram. So it should be seen as a collective historical source.
Sir, my question is regarding, sir, the dating process on the basis of paleography or chronology, building chronology on the basis of epigraphy only. Sir, Alexander Cunningham, sir, or many others has tried to develop chronology based on paleography. But very recently you just mentioned that it may show a gap of 2 centuries sometimes. So sir, if we are having an antiquity or artifact which doesn't have any association with any strata or culture, we are only relying only on that artifact which is having a paleographical evidence. So how much we can rely on the evidence and how precisely we should date that material, and how to be very specific that okay, it should not be later than Kushana or it should not be later than Satvana. Suppose for take the example of Bharut, he was trying to date Bharut on the basis of paleographical evidences only. So that how we can make tentative analysis on the basis of paleography.
See, paleography can be an additional support.
Yes, sir.
Because even in Arikemedu, I was there in the excavation, you get pottery inscription in different levels. So sometimes even within the archaeological context, things moves up. So I think this dating, if you are going to date anything within 200 years, I can't say this was this pottery style changed in 10 BC to 7 BC. So broader range is reliable. That's what I am trying to argue. Sometimes we should take this as only an indicating. So this is the problem many scholars have, whether to date in 2nd century BC, 3rd century BC, 4th century BC. Will we do that? This is where, especially if people were writing in that same way, this is very
Sir, many of the sculptures we find in museums which have a small inscriptions, but we do not have the association or the context from where it was found. So on the basis of art features only, like iconography.
I think that should be seen as only an estimate. You can never date because rather sometimes the art tradition continue. The same typology argument also comes in the case of sculptures too.
Yes.
So I think we cannot precisely. Sometimes many of the Buddha statues they found in Tamil Nadu, they call it 9th, 10th century. But I am not really sure how it is. It is just a gut feeling. So I think we should take it only as an indicative unless you find any inscriptions there mentioning a specific. That way it is better. So paleographically you can, I said. So by looking at that is more tricky. In some cases, yes, you can differentiate between Pallava and Choda sculpture, maybe 3-4 art forms.
Sir, is there any way we can develop like the site to estimate it more precisely? Only by getting practice we can do it, or
Yeah, I think even C14 dating has problem.
Yes,
Calligraphy can be. The chronology is a big problem.
To
Sometimes
calibrate
we
the
should
dates,
take it
yes.
as an indicative, and also sometimes we should not too much try to say whether it is this 101 BC, 102 BC, because that doesn't, it's not relevant.
Yes.
So rather we should try to understand the process over a long term. So only, as I said, we want to archaeology sometimes can be earliest, largest and oldest. This kind of logic has a problem. So sometimes you can't blame. It is generally the nature. When you excavate a site, you have to show why it has to be important. Even sometimes, even probably colonial people were writing these texts to get funding from the colonial agency, highlighting that it will be useful. So there also we should not take these texts as from the face value. When a person writes a proposal, they are writing to convince the person. Whether it was a common norms in the mind of people or the person who is trying to place a convincing argument about the importance of the site. So that happens in many of the project meeting and saying that why we should do this, what is its significance. That is where people tend to search for a social relevance, and that is where this person is involved. Because many of these knowledge production, they are also embedded in the socio-cultural context.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Mirikodan Yudamagan. Sir, Mirikodan Yudamagan is a Muthugudi inscription. Which period?
Brahmi. Brahmi, Delhi period, first 2nd century. That period.
Sir, I just wanted to ask that, like we are talking about inscriptions and epigraphy on the basis of literature, we are trying to use literature as an intervention to study. How possible is it to study numismatics in a similar way when numismatics is obviously more political in nature? And my second question is that apart from gold, references of which other precious or semi-precious metals and gemstones do we find in inscriptions?
Okay. Actually, I have another presentation on the ornaments and all that. And we also get reference to all kinds of metals in the inscriptions, more in the medieval time. In the early context, there is a reference to iron and also gold in the inscription. As the merchant who is dealing with that particular material. Even in the literature, the merchants were classified according to the material that they deal with. Even in the medieval time, there were certain merchants who were dealing in oil, some who were gold, some who were dealing in precious metal. So there is a reference to a merchant from Karnataka who built a temple near Tiruchirappalli. He was a diamond merchant, but he was living in Tanjavur. So he is from a place called Kirikottu. I don't know where exactly this place is mentioned. He built a temple near Nangavaram, near Tiruchirappalli, but he was living in the village, town of a street in Tanjavur. So we do get these kind of reference. Similarly, with Tamil Nadu has so many inscriptions referring to people from Kerala coming, Malay Mandalam they call it. They were very active, and there is an inscription in Burma which actually refers to a person from Kerala. He built a Vishnu temple in the 13th, 14th century. He is from Kodungolu, but the language is Tamil. So this is where they use a language. The person is from different areas. Similarly, Muslims, some of them living in Sri Lanka, and also the coast, they were using Tamil as their language. Sometimes people use a particular language for the document, sometimes for the spoken language, but their identity may be different. Similarly, Srirangam has an inscription from there's an inscription which mentions about a person from Kashmir. So you get all these kind of references in the inscription here and there. So
but these will be majorly of the merchants and not of like people.
But there's sometimes devotees are also pilgrims.
No, the people Kora Yaksha has reference to a jeweler's name that has been carved on his hand. So do we have any reference of a similar kind which is not dealing with the only merchandising of the metal, but also the person who's the craftsman or dealing with the jewelry?
I mentioned about Perumpattan Kal, a stone of a goldsmith found in Thailand. That can be taken as a case. That shows that these people were traveling and he carried this stone which was used for checking the purity of the gold. So that is one instance where on portable objects people have written their names.
And so my first question on how if at all numismatics.
Yeah, numismatics. I think numismatics, we do have reference to coins in the inscriptions, different kinds of coins, and also their value. Actually, what you call as numismatics, partly broader economic history, where I will be dealing with some of these aspects, like in the sense in the measurement. It is part of the economic history where by looking at the inscription, actually that itself is another separate area where people give the value of the coins, how many sheep or goat we can find, and the economic history related. If you are offering a lamp, that means lighting a lamp for a temple perpetually, you have to donate 96 sheep or goat. So it has same specific value of gold, right? So this is mentioned in the inscription. So coins should be seen as a continuum of the economic history, and that is where we need to correlate the information found in the coins, the inscriptions, and with the coin and their value. But again, there is a problem. The inscription mentions about Padangas or one old type of coin, black coin, but the problem is which coin it refers to. That problem is there. So there also, I think it's very important to refer to these.
Okay, we should start the second
Yeah,
session.
it's
Otherwise,
the time is.
even as it is, we'll have to stop at 12:30.
The project that I did as part of my research, this project was funded by Indian National Science Academy, where I tried to understand the traditional measurement units that are mentioned in the inscription. You must be familiar with the work done by Professor Danino. He has done excellent work by measuring the architecture of the site of Dholavira and try to argue that this town was laid out on the basis of traditional measurement system like angula or angula, pole or danda, and they had a specific scheme. So this is very important. As in the morning I argued, when we look at archaeological material or epigraphy or inscription from a independent context, we get a different perspective. When we try to correlate them, we get a completely different perspective. So my argument is, in this presentation also I am going to argue how important it is to correlate different sources of evidence and also living and existing practices as well as living traditions. So in a way you can consider this as very much interdisciplinary. For this research, initially I thought I would take up entire South India, but then the INSA expert advised me it is better for you to confine to one small region and do a detailed work. Already a person has done some similar kind of work in Karnataka. Rajesh has published a book on the traditional measurement he has worked out and their use and different type of measurement units. So I took up Tamil Nadu, and this is part of what we can call as cognitive archaeology, in which we try to understand the process of thinking through the study of material culture as well as reference in the inscriptions, where we study artifacts and structures and features. The main objective of this project was, to understand if there was any standardization of measurement units in South India. Often it is said that in the medieval period, Rajaraja standardized the measurement units and the land was completely measured. This is in a sense true. What happened was, during the medieval time, the land revenue was considered very important, and the kings employed so many administrative people to completely document the land, the measurement, as well as to estimate the amount of revenue that has to be given to the government. For this purpose, they were maintaining detailed record, but these records are not preserved now. But this information is found in many of the inscriptions. So I was trying to study these literature. I was using mainly inscriptions, South Indian inscription and other annual reports on Indian epigraphy. In addition to that, I also tried to do field research. Conventionally, many of the researchers who are working on epigraphy generally focused on the inscription and trying to publish the data and then interpret history, and generally the measurement related aspect was largely ignored. So I took up this work to document the measurement rods or danda or pole. Pole, even in Kannada it is called pole, and Andhra Pradesh also has the same name. In Sanskrit it is called danda, which was used for measuring the land and for assessing. Even if you take the case of India, there are different land measurement units used by people even today, and these units were converted and standardized mainly during the time of the British. Till then there were large variations, and even today if you meet people in the small villages, they will say they will use several categories of land units like valley or ma and all that. So in addition to that, I was trying to look at the architectural sites also. The measurement units, what is known as angula or hasta or pole or danda, were used for laying out the temple, for constructing houses, and also for measuring the land. So I wanted to correlate the architectural sites, what was the size of the units that they used for the construction of the temple, and how it correlates with the land measurement, how the same correlation is found in the medieval inscriptions. So I selected some sites, I measured some, went to the site and measured some rock cut temples, some structural temples, and also I did some field measurement, some of the old fields. If you look at any of the fields in Google Map, you search Google Map or Wikipedia, you see many village maps. Sometimes you can find the lands are perfectly rectangular. Some of these lands were actually measured and laid out during the medieval time, in my view. Sometimes they were changed. Even I am also from the region of Kaveri Valley, where our own land was of one size, and not in order to facilitate irrigation, we divided the land into two. So that time it was done using measurement, using modern scale. But if you look at the units mentioned, they are perfectly 80 into 40, 3,200. There are, if you look at the numbers in the inscription, 3,200, sometime 2,000. So these units, they have followed certain scheme. I was trying to understand. This is a summary of the work I have done. It's not necessary. We documented 25 architectural sites, and we found references to measurement rods from the inscription. More than 270 measurement rods. They are known as 16-foot rod, 18-foot rod, 24-foot rod. You find all these references in the inscriptions. And we identified also at some villages they had marked the measurement rod. Maybe when you go to a temple next time, you should try to look for these markers. So when we go and study a temple, generally we look for the inscriptions only. These kind of markings. Another aspect which I documented, I didn't pursue, is the gaming boards on the temples. You see the temples, there are so many gaming boards. Interestingly, I found at the site of Lothal, there is a gaming board. The similar gaming board design is also found in the temples. So we are not trying to relate, this is there, that is there, these people know. It is basically the continuity of gaming board tradition, which is also another important. I didn't, because we went on documenting, we found a lot of plus mark, vertical mark in the temples. We tried to measure, try to make a meaning of these measurement rods around several places. I am not going into the chapters and data into that. And also these are some of the issues. What are the issues that we get when we go and document these in the field? Sometimes people have renovated the temples, the stones have shifted, and administrative hurdles, brief later. Sometimes people will not allow you to photograph or use a tape even inside. In Madurai temple, they didn't even allow us to carry a tape, and we had a lot of difficulty in getting measurement. This is a Mandavapattu rock cut cave temple. There is a beautiful Sanskrit inscription which mentions that Mahendravarma will cause this to be moved without, actually Chitra Madhavan will be measuring too, without metal, mortar, timber, other material. So this we did the measurement and try to see the scheme. The idea is to understand how, in the morning I mentioned, many of the Sangam or early historic bricks are of 42 centimeter, some are 32 centimeter, some are 39 centimeter, some are 49 centimeter. Interestingly, these measurements, there are three types of hasta mentioned in the ancient text. They somewhat matches. Again, we need not assume that whatever is mentioned in the text is exactly reproduced. We see a pattern. Why 42 centimeter? Why not 30 centimeter? 42 centimeter is actually 1 cubit or 1 hasta, muram, what we call in Tamil. One type of, there was another type of muram which was 39 centimeter. There is another which is of 49 centimeter. Actually, Balasubramaniam has published from IIT Kanpur. He has published a few article papers on the traditional size of the traditional angulam. and also Danino has published research papers. And this knowledge is also prevalent among the traditional architects, or what we call as tabadis or tachans, as they are referred to in the inscription. They clearly preserve the knowledge that 0.75 of English angula is equal to 1 traditional angula. So we tried employing this, but unfortunately what happened was we see lot of variations. Like the way I said, you have a standard Brahmi which should be written that, and then what people were doing is differently. Sometimes it is also said, when according to this architectural treatises, when you want to build a temple, you take the measurement of the angula of the owner or the person who initiated the construction. So therefore, you see lot of variation, and finally at the end of my research I couldn't find any standardization, but I did find some patterns, at least 2-3 variations in the distribution of the measurement rods. We did measure all these temples, all these rocket caves. We also measured this Vaikunthanathar Perumal temple at Kanchipuram. This is an interesting temple which has 3 sanctum sanctorums, which has different forms of Vishnu. This is Pragadishwara temple, Tanjavur. Actually, Pishar, from French Institute, they have done excellent measurement and documentation. One of the important aspect is excellent, accurate measurement and documentation. Actually, Michel Danino is the one who pointed out. Earlier, I was taking the old publication which was by ASI, in which it is said the dimension of the temple was 800 feet by 400 feet. I don't know from where these figures came. Everybody was copying. Only when he pointed out, and I went and checked, and also I went and actually measured the temple. Again, what happened was, when we checked the measurement, the temple has been renovated. So again, these measurements cannot be considered very accurate. So from my measurement, what I found was, there is also a reference to 16 span rod during the time of the Cholas. Interestingly, I found the main sanctum. This is the main sanctum and the main temple complex, and around you have this compound wall, or Tiruchittu Maligai, or Pradikshana Pada, and the main thing, and there is this Gopura here. I have not marked here. Interestingly, here what they have done is, they have done 10 times of the 16 span rod as the space between the main structure and the surrounding area. This way, this area, it is different. On all 3 sides, they have taken the measurement of 16 span rod 10 times and then laid out the temple. This more or less matches with the 16 span rod of the Chola times. This was one of the main finding of my research. This is Thirumalai Nayakar Mahal, and here also we did some measurement. And here we also found out what was the size of the angulam. I told you Mandakapattu, Tiruchirappalli, various rocket caves. We found a lot of variation in the standard angulam. Tiruchirappalli, we found the unit of 1.75, here 1.72. We found a lot of variation in the distribution of the measurement. That indicates clearly that each one was using a different standard of measurement. That is why an angulum was not similar, but in some cases there are similarity. That's what we found. So this is from the, list all the size of angulum that came up based on the measurement, architectural survey that we did. We did it at 23 temples. So now it is clear, in some cases there is matching, in some cases there is no matching, and you can see this muram or this hasta, which is like 45 centimeter, 40 centimeter, 40.74, 52. We find some correlation, but at some site we didn't find.
Scattered plot on these angulas.
No, I
You should,
don't have.
because I think some pattern
Yeah,
there are 2 clusters of values. We discussed that.
Yeah. And also we did the reference, we looked at the Danda the measurements from the inscriptions, and we found maximum number of about 270 measurement rods, maximum in the region of Kanjipuram and also in Viluppuram. Maximum number of reference to measurement rod in the inscription. So which indicate, and also in the Kaveri Valley we found only limited number of measurement rod. That may be something to do with the preservation, we don't know. We find a lot of variation in the distribution, especially in the region of Ariyalur and Chennai, some regions. We don't have much reference to these measurement rods. And in terms of chronology, how these 270 units are distributed, we found maximum number of measurement rods falling in the period of 1200 to 1300 roughly. And here you can see very limited, and then gradually you see, and then all of a sudden there is a decline. This is only the distribution, but the same measurement rods were also probably used. Only thing is the number of inscriptions are also less after this 1300. That is why the decline in the number. We found another interesting inscription. So this is where we try to look at the text and try to understand. There is a beautiful inscription found in a place called Melpadi, where it talks about the location of the plot. The land donated to the temple, donated or land discussed for a purpose, is in the center. By the side of the plot, actually the medieval inscription gives very clear detail on the land dimension as well as the land boundaries and the whose plot is there, who is sitting. Now if you want to refer to somebody who is sitting near to the blue shirt, person wearing blue shirt and then red shirt, like that they give all direction. Here interestingly this inscription measures to the highway called highway, which had a width of 2 dandas. On the other side it had another highway which had a width of 4 danda. On the other side there is a Chola Simendra Udayar temple. On this side there is Nuga, river called Nuga. On the other side there is the way which led to the place called Mattamanacheri. There is a way. So I found this particular land marking very interesting. So what we did was, we went back to this site, tried to identify. Interestingly, since there is a temple here, we thought this area would not have changed. We went to the field, we found this temple existing. This highway was also existing. It is still there. And this highway had disappeared, this area had disappeared. And this river is there. So we could get a measurement of this. Interestingly, it perfectly matched with the size of the 16 span rod. This is the particular way. It is at the site called Melpadi, and we did a measurement. The width of this highway is exactly that, almost matching the size of the Brigadishwara temple sanctum size, which comes to 396 centimeter, roughly about 396 centimeter for a 16 span rod, roughly about that. Actually this Brigadishwara temple measurement is somewhere about 795 according to Peshawar, because we couldn't go and measure inside this. So interestingly we found this particular way matching, but here they mention it is 4 kol width. So this helped us to understand that though the inscription in all the villages mention about 16 span rod, it varied place to place. Rajagopal and Heitzman, they have published a paper, they did a land measurement. They also come up with the same conclusion. From this only I could understand, if an inscription from Kanjipuram mentioned about 16 cubit, another inscription from Tanjavur mentions about 16 cubit, we cannot assume both were of same size, because the cubit itself was not standardized. What was 2 dandas in one place became 4 danda in another place. This is what we learned at this place. Here we did a measurement. This site is protected by ASI. I was amazed to believe that it was exactly the same measurement. This is something.
What is the date of this?
This inscription dates to 11th century. 11th century. But when we measured this highway near the, this is the river. It's looking at this site from the river and looking into the highway. The temple is on the right side. When we measured here, it is more than 10 centimeter. But we took the boundary stone fixed at this place. But again, we need not assume it was exact. But this clearly indicates that they were following the same measurement rod in this place. This is in the wrong place. Okay, I will show this. There are two milestones found in Tamil Nadu. They are also very interesting. There is one which mentioned Adiyaman Peruvadi. Highway is mentioned, and interestingly, they mentioned the distance in Kadam, which is also a traditional measurement unit. Here they have written the number, they have written the text, the name of the highway, Adiyaman Peruvadi. The highways were named after the kings in the medieval period. The large two circle marks the 10 Kadam is a measurement unit, and then smaller one mark about 1. So this is 27. It is mentioned here 2, 10, 7. So this was probably marked for people who cannot read this. So it is easily understandable. This is found in the Salem region. There are two. One is at Matlampatti, another in Dharmaburi. And then we went on to document. So far I was discussing about the actual architectural measurement and the measurement of the land. And then now we will look into the actual measurement rods which are marked, and we found the measurement rods in all these villages. Even if you go, you can see the measurement rods are marked with a cross symbol on one end, cross symbol on other end, sometimes a Trishulam like this temple, like this marker near Kadalur. What happened was the early researchers, they were generally looking at the inscription, but they did not go into this particular measurement rod, which was focus of my research. This is the central. They have two cross. The central portion is marked with the vertical line. This is the measurement rod marked with a straight line. Some places there is no straight line. Here you have two vertical lines, and there is one single line linking these entire space. It measures 392 centimeter. There is an inscription of Rajaraja which mentions about 16 span rod. So we could assume the 16 span rod is equal to 392 centimeter. The measurement that we get from Pragadishwara temple is 395, sometimes 396. So clearly 4 centimeter error is very minimal. So the inscription nearby mentioned, but nowhere some cases it is mentioned. Yeah, very rarely they mention the size of this. This is another measurement rod. In these cases we are not able to estimate their age. If you visit any of the temples, you can, I think it should be there and all over. In Karnataka it is there. Already Rajesh has published a book in which he discusses their length. Here you can see two vertical line and there is a straight line. This is marked on a, oh sorry, Jagdish. Sorry, I misspelled the name, Jagdish. It is Jagdish. He has published a book. Sorry, it is Jagdish. This is the estimate of this measurement rod. This is a place called Thirumanikudi near Kadalur, where you can see this measurement rods. They are not very, they don't have any inscription or anything. By measuring these, you can find out what kind of scheme they followed for a particular angula. This is another temple where there is an inscription below these two markings pointing out the edge, and then halfway through, half and 1/4 they are also marked. And this is called Tachamuram. This is found here. This is architect's hasta. That is what it is written. It is in Kanjipuram.
So Sacha would be the name of
Tacha is a Stabadi. Later on, these people are. Peruntacha is a great architect. Tacha means the architect. Nowadays they call themselves Stabadi.
Yes.
But in the medieval inscription they are called as Tacha. The same term is also used for carpenters who woodworkers. This is also in the Varadaraja Perumal temple, Kanchipuram. It is Kandaragandan Pole. This is another measurement rod. This is of Vijayanagara period. Generally you find longer measurement rods during this time. This is another found near Timandar Koil, ASL protected site. It has a Telugu inscription near Pondicherry. This is the same Varadaraja Perumal temple, Kanchipuram. The same. This is found near Tirumalamadi. This is another measurement. These are just the milestone which I mentioned. See here, I try to summarize the different measurement rods. How 16 span itself has various measurements. It varies region to region. That shows that probably there was no standardization. While angulam or span or even hasta or danda, they are saying their actual measurement varied place to place. Again, coming to the area measurement, we have a lot of beautiful reference to area. What defines as a kuri? Kuri is a smaller unit. Actually, it's a Tamil term for a square. One rod by one rod is called kuri or square. 256 kuri units make one ma, according to some inscription. Ma is a bigger unit. See, they have used the same span. Actually, it is charm. 16 charm, 16 span. You can write it as span. 16 span rod, 256 in 1018 AD inscription is 1 ma. The same unit has 100 kudi in another context, another village. Here 128 in Tanjavur. So you have different kinds of rods and different kinds of ma and kudi units. So what we get here is a very complex situation. So the dimension of the measurement rod which vary from, sometimes it is just 25 centimeter and it goes up to 750 centimeter in length. A lot of variation in the measurement rod. So here we try to work out the measurement rod. This table actually gives the actual length of the measurement rod, 25 centimeter down to 570, there is some more, up to 700. And there is another inscription through Tulkovilu which beautifully mentions about two kind of tradition. One which mentions Ulagiyal and another as traditional. This inscription is very important because it mentions that there were two kinds of tradition. One is practical, the other is theoretical or traditional. So that's a beautiful inscription which helps us to understand why there were variation. It also uses the term the science of measurement. Alagiyal, the term Alagiyal means science of measurement, and this way this inscription is very important. So these are some of the traditional units. So I also have worked out some of the simple arithmetic calculation which I will show you in the afternoon. Fractions. Actually these inscriptions have beautiful fractions, and they mention about the area of the land in a particular village area of land that is taxable, area of land that is tax exempted. Kani is a term which refers to the fraction of 1/80, and you get a lot of fractions appearing, and there are also micro fractions appearing in some of the inscriptions. I think in the afternoon I will be showing some of these fractions. Mundiri is a fraction of 1/320. It is also there in other states. In Malayalam also the same terms are used. And patti is another land measurement. So I am just skipping. So there is a definition of these units, and though Bailey or a larger unit, something like our hectare, it is probably 6.6 acre in a modern sense, but again it was not uniform across. According to the inscription, we get at least 6 kinds of areas. 6 kind of areas, each one is entirely different. That shows that in the medieval time, the land measurement was not standardized. Only the standardization was done arithmetically.
So, what are the terms in Kannada for these measurements?
They have, but I have a paper. Kani is used. They have other terms. I don't know all the terms. I have a paper. Jagdish, I can.
And so what is symbol of cross and shoe symbol?
Actually cross indicates the boundary. Actually, when they wanted to mark a measurement, they put 2 cross so that you could take measurements between 2. The halfway through is indicated by a vertical mark. So we also did some ethnographic information. What we did was we went to the field. We took Google Earth map, and then we went actually measured this particular field. You can see some fields are very haphazard in shape, or they are not proper. Some are perfectly rectangle. We went and did measurement, and initially we tried to reduce based on Siyamangalam rod. They had in one side, they had at least 19 pole, 19 danda, 19.3, almost perfectly, because the run was parallelly running. On the other side, it was different. So we tried to use this Siyamangalam rod, but in this village where we measured, we didn't have a parallel. Actually, it is just a preliminary work. We need to do more work, because when we go and approach people for measuring land, people are very reluctant and they don't give. So this we measured in an area. In this village we don't have measurement rod, but generally I am sure that they were using this particular measurement rod. We also did some body part measurement and tried to arrive at some statistics, and based on the people's dimension, So from this we understood that probably there was no actual standardization. The standardization which they mentioned was notional. Probably the mathematic or arithmetic calculation was advanced, and they were using this. And these are some of the conclusions that I have arrived at here. And you have different kind of measurement rod, what is called PD or bow grip, to 24 foot. And PD is this bow grip.
What about pretty sure in this expression?
That is the elephant. There it is different. PD is this. This is bow grip. Go to the Sanskrit word for that. This bow grip. This is Sanskrit word for that. Dhanush.
The Dhanush is the
This
length of the bow.
Yeah, this the width of this.
Yes,
There is a word for this, the bow grip of this particular width. There is a reference to this. So just some confusion. So you find sometimes the units based on 100 and 1000, sometimes numbers of 150, 128, 256, which are multiples of 16 appearing. So that probably indicates that they were using, in many cases, 16 span as a standard. And we also have this evidence of names of the pole, like Ulagalandan pole from the medieval time. The pole, several other measurement rods were used. We found one standardized danda of 82 to 84 centimeter, that is roughly 42 centimeter, that's early historic bricks, and then double measurement. That is one standard. As I said earlier, another one of 24.5 centimeter being one span, and that is another variation. So we do find some pattern in the distribution of these measurements. So we are trying to argue that we could suggest that there could be some basic envelopes. However, when there were no standardization, then there were several variations in the actual measurement. These are again where they are found. I am trying to see that these are found in the main centers where they carved these measurement rods. These measurement rods were carved on the temples which are located in some important location, heads of territory, and they are found mainly in the outside compound wall, sometime near the Gopura, sometime near the sanctorum, so that people could come and measure and check, and then probably they took a bamboo or some other pole, and then they checked their standard measurement rod in the temple, and then they used it. There is one interesting reference in a place near Nagapattinam, near Mayiladurai, which mentioned that this measurement rod was designed based on the measurement rod marked in the Brihadishwara temple, Tanjavur. We tried to locate, but we could not. We found one or two measurement rods in Tanjavur temple, but we couldn't find any correlation. Probably it is lost, we don't know. Because when we actually go and look for this, it's very difficult to locate, because sometimes people have shifted or the stones are
I have a question here. Was there a royal standardization for royal? Because if the land records and land measurement was important, and every locality has a different measurement, how will the king control, and it will be all confusion all over the territory?
No, they were using something called Madakku, a conversion. They were using a conversion system, because they mentioned according to the measurement rod of this particular village. It is mentioned. So whenever they mention the unit, they mention the name of the rod, or sometimes they don't mention. Sometimes they mention according to the measurement rod of this particular village. So we have to assume that.
What was the royal datum which they will convert it to? Like we are, from modern perspective, we are converting into centimeter. Now we, from the centimeter reference, we are looking at the different rods.
So they were using angulam.
What was the royal angulam with which it was
what was the
converted
ratio
into?
between various measurement units, angulam and patti, etc.? He is asking.
Angulam and say there is also this conversion
If
mentioned.
there is any conversion formula, or if there is
There is no, we are not able to.
any ratio between various units.
No, it is very difficult to. Some ratio forms as a 6.6. We are not able to.
In which units, or in angulam, or in moduram, or
See,
in
actually,
Sunday?
see 12 angulam
12 angulam is
equal to 1 span.
one span,
Can I just
Yeah.
small point that basically all this
and
system,
one span is equivalent to which how many centimeters?
1 span, right? It varies to place to place. I said
16 span was equal
one
to
span
300
is equal-
something.
Yeah.
300.
1 span into 12 into 1.75. Sometimes it comes to 19 centimeter, 21 centimeter, sometimes 22.5 centimeter. 42 divided by 2. 42 is 1 hasta divided by 2. You get 21 centimeter as a span. Span.
a small remark. These measures all originate from the dimensions of the human body. So angula you understand, and then you have the vitasti, which is the span. This is the span.
Yeah,
This is the span.
This is
So
the
this is the
span.
span, and
Span.
with this
And this is
span,
hasta.
with this
Hasta.
span,
Yeah,
you
that's
get
okay.
This
two.
is hasta.
You get two spans will give you one hasta, except that it will be valid for some people and not valid for other people. For me, it doesn't work. My arm is too long, and I even though I may stretch, I get more than 2 spans.
Sir,
Okay? But this is a standardized definition.
In northern Indian villages, or particularly in Haryana, this is used as one hasta.
Yes,
Yeah,
all over
same,
India.
same.
All
Yeah,
over
yeah,
India.
yeah.
But then you see the problem is that it is not standard because human bodies are not standard. Even the thumb. So what
There are
happens?
variations in head and everything.
And the height of the body,
Yeah.
the height of the body is supposed to be,
Yeah.
the height of the body is supposed to be one.
Height of the body is supposed to be.
So the height of the body is supposed to be 96 angulas as per Arthashastra, Varahamira and other texts. So that also varies. It doesn't work for everybody. So what happens in practice is that you have to find some local standard, as Dr. Selva
But if these units are practiced in northern India in that time also, or some other
all
units are...
over India, all over
All over
India. In
India.
fact, there are, if you are interested, there are series of papers by Mainkar and Raju in the 1960s, which examine region by region by region all the, of course, not very complete, not as complete as what Dr. Selvakumar has done, but you get a very good idea of the variety. So in South India, often there was the thumb of the stapati
Yeah.
was taken as this angula, and of course this stapati, one stapati differs from another, but his particular thumb may become the standard. Or the angula may be defined in terms of grain. So in the Shulpa Sutra, it will be 14 grains of millet.
Measurement of weight.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, in Arthashastra you will have 8 yavas, that is to say 8 grains of barley. Then later on in South India, sometimes it is defined on rice.
Right. Yeah.
But again, these grains will differ because you have several varieties of barley, many varieties of rice.
Yeah.
So nothing is absolutely standardized. These are just broad guidelines which may vary, will vary regionally. That's it. But the initial definition is the human body, not only in India, all over the world. Even the old English system of the finger, the inch. Finger is not the same as inch. Finger, the inch, the handstand, the cubit, the foot. All these are basically defined from the human body.
Yeah, they are used all over the world actually. See, actually, 12 angula is one span, and 24 angula is one hasta or muram. And sometime, as I said, 82 centimeter. So it has 4 span, or 4 of this mentioned as a one tanda. So as I said, 16 time of this is 16 span rod. Sometimes foot is mentioned, adi, foot, pada. Pada is also used in the Artha Sastra.
Yeah, so you have 2 paras. You have one of 10, one of 3, one of 10, one of 12, and one of 15 angulas.
Yeah.
And see again, Arthashastra will give different units according to the occupation. You will have one dhanush for the city, the architects who lay out the cities and the streets, but the carpenters will have another one. So it becomes very complex because it's not, it's uniform.
And again, for iconography, when they were measuring, they were using the hand. For the land, they were using pada. So you can't use a pada for iconography. So you do find these variation, and a lot of variations are there. Probably, so that is why when you say one angulam, angulam is a relative unit. It may not be similar all over. Same like span, it varies person to person. It varies place to place. So 16 span in one region may not be the same as 16 span in another region. Sometimes initially we understood that way, but when we started working with this, we realized that these are all very relative, but we do find a pattern. Sometimes what I found was the basic angulum of 1.75 has been multiplied by 14 times to arrive at pada. So 14 times. So what sometimes they have done is they have multiplied or naturally our body is like that. Since they use the body, sometimes it is 12, 13, 14, they have multiplied, and sometimes they created multiple angulums and rods. So that is why you see so much of variation in the measurement rod. So what through my research have tried to demonstrate is try to understand their
if you don't mind, the dimension of this field. You see, it's very interesting because this in Nepal, two researchers, Pant and Funo is a Japanese researcher, did exactly the same thing. They measured lots of old rectangular fields, and the dimension they were getting again and again was 38.4 meters. See this 38.8. Again and again this was coming. So they reduced it to a danda of 1.92 meters, and they said these are 20 dandas. But it will not work all the time. And
All the time, yeah,
here
yeah,
it works only for one
phase.
one field.
Yeah, 1 feet. And sometimes I am sure that they measured and well, they were reclaiming land, they were measuring it and they are laying it out
Yeah,
for some purpose. Sometimes they were reworking it. They were doing
So these were
some measurement.
many fields, not
But-
just 2, 3.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
were
yeah.
7, 8,
so many.
and the average was fairly precise.
Because what happens when there, you know how these villages are laid out. There is a boundary lying in one direction, and there is a canal running in one direction. The canal and these two run very parallelly. So in one direction they form exactly this. So this also may have some meaning. We are not able to understand what kind of standardization that they used in that period. So this is there mainly in the wet agricultural area where irrigation was prevalent. But whereas in other areas we don't know. We need to. They had a different measurement rod for dry lands, different measurement rod for the wetland. So you had a lot of other variation.
Becomes quite complicated.
So these are some conclusions. So I agree with the view that there is one type of angula around 1.75 or 76, but we can't precisely fix so accurate as 1.763.
So one aspect of epigraphy which very few scholars would normally talk about, but of great importance for the economic history of those regions. We have lunch is waiting for us, so we will reassemble. Let us say 1 hour. Is it enough?
Yes.
All right. So let us reassemble at 2:30 for the afternoon session.
What are the 1960s papers you are mentioning about?